Okay, good evening, and we will be going over the assignment 3. We are in week 5, and we're learning about functions, and we're also learning about validating that the entries in a form are correct before we perform the calculation. I have a little bit of a cold, so I may sound a little funny here. On the right-hand side of my screen, this is the form that we'll be using. We're only using 2 text boxes right now, and we have 2 buttons. The second button is a generic form button, so it will automatically clear. However, later on I'll change that to a JavaScript button so that you can learn how to clear it on your own. Alright, so let's just take a look at what we have in the body section. I have a simple form, my opening and closing form tag. There's my input, ID equals width. Here's a placeholder for my error message. So I will be giving the user an error message if the value is not correct. Here's my input for my height. And this is a form element. It's called an input element. And here's my span error placeholder. Here's input type equals button for my calculate button, which says calculate the area. And here's my input type equals reset. Alright, this is form technology, assuming you understand HTML forms. If not, you can still work with it, but I'm just explaining to you that all these attributes mean something. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to click the button on the right, the calculate area, and we're going to call a function. Alright, now, in JavaScript, right now, we've only learned to reference things by the ID attribute. And that is a unique attribute as part of the HTML syntax. Alright, so the first thing we need to do in our onload event handler is we need to set up the event handler. Alright, so that's going to call a function. So in the script tag, we're going to create a function. Now I'm going to create a named function using the function keyword, and I'm going to call calculate. Alright, now functions are preceded by parentheses. They could take parameters. We don't need to pass any parameters to it. We're just doing a simple function. Alright, now the code inside the curly braces will be executed when that function is called. And the first thing you always want to do with everything you do is to test every step along the way. Alright, so don't assume that we are actually calling the function correctly. Put an alert in there. That's the first thing you should always have, an alert to make sure that you have called that function. Alright, so here's the function call. And we have to reference our object. So that's document, spell it right. That's not right. There we go. Dot get element by ID. And the ID was btn calc, I believe. If I'm wrong on that, it's not going to work. Dot on click. Alright, so we're CLICK. We're looking at what is called the on click event. Events happen in the web page all the time. We're constantly clicking, we're constantly moving, we're constantly typing. However, we generally don't handle those events. If we want to handle the event, you write a function in order to handle it. So therefore the function is called the event handler. It's going to handle this click event. The name of the function is calculate. Alright, and this is the syntax. So if I were to save this, Control S, and go back over here and reload, alright, now I need to click the button. See, this is what's happening. All the action is happening when we click the button. Alright. So the first thing you do is you want to make sure that when you click that button, you can call that function. Because it doesn't make any sense to try to figure out how to write the code if you don't have the function being called to begin with. Very simple. Alright, and I seem a little harsh with that, but you need to learn how to work through your errors. And this is a common error. People aren't calling the function. They're wondering why the code isn't working. Well, the function wasn't called. So the first thing you do is make sure you have this set up. At this point, we're finished. Alright, now, one thing that I have been talking about in this class is that when the page loads, it doesn't know where these IDs are. and therefore any reference to something happening in the page has to be happen in this onload section. All right, so let's just think this out logically. When I click this calculate area button here, all right, the page has already loaded. In order for the user to click this button, the button has to be there. All right, now this event handler has to be in memory. Like I said, I can click here, I can click here, I can click here. I can click all over the page, and JavaScript is going to ignore it unless I have an event handler set up. Now, after I click this, it's going to grab the values that I have entered. Here again, it is impossible for me to enter a value in this form field unless the form field is already loaded. Therefore, references to these IDs go inside the function. They do not have to go in the onload section. Just explaining the logic behind that. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to retrieve those values. And I'm going to just move over here so that I don't run off the page. Although the code is, my code looks better when it's lined up nicely, but I'm going to unline it just so I don't run off the page. Okay, so document dot get element by ID, and the ID for this is width. Okay, dot value. All right, this expression will retrieve the value that the user has entered because this is a different type of object. Form elements have a value property, and properties are just the name of the property. All right, I'm going to store that in a variable. All right, and here again, you should always alert to make sure that you are grabbing the value correctly. All right, and what I suggest is do one thing at a time. Don't let it overwhelm you. Just think it through and just get the basic things down. Get one thing at a time and then worry about the error messages later. Don't think you have to come in and do the whole thing from top to bottom. Nobody writes code from top to bottom. You didn't write your HTML from top to bottom. You wrote the basic pieces and then you started adding to it. All right, so I need to reload this. And if I put 100 in here and I click, there you go. Okay, so I've successfully been able to retrieve that value. All right, let me comment that out. And I can just copy and paste this because it's going to be essentially the same as the other one. Let me just line that up a little bit more. Except this is the height. And this is height. And now I'm going to alert the height. Let me take this off. Control S, go over here, reload. Let me put 30 in for the height. There we go. Okay, so I'm in business. My variables work. All right. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to do a simple calculation. It's going to be var the area. Var the area equals the width times the height. All right, here again, we're going to alert this. Okay, Control S, I'll save it. I'm going to reload. I'll put 20 in here. I'll put 20 times 30 should be 600, am I correct? There we go. Okay, all right. Now we're going to write the output to the page. Let me comment out my alert. I didn't set up my placeholder. Sorry about that. All right, P ID equals result. And because we're using firstchild.node value, you need a space here. This is a text node, and if that space is not there, there is no first child, and you will not be able to write a node value. The value is what the node says. All right, that's essentially my placeholder. Here again, this does not need to go in the onload section because the function is being called after the page loads. All right, so let's write this out. So I'm going to access the element, as I always do, document.getElementById, and this is result dot firstChild dot node value. Let me move this over so I have room. Move it over a little bit. Oh, no. That's good enough. That equals, and I'm just going to take it on the next line, equals the area is, I'm going to concatenate a literal with the value, and my variable is the area. All right, so let's save that, Control S. Let's go back over here. Let's put a new one in. We're going to put 25 by 25. That should be, what, 500? Oops, something is wrong. All right, get element by ID result first child. Oh, I forgot my plus sign. Okay, there we go. Okay, Control S. All right, let's go back over here, and now we'll put 10 by 10. 10 by 20, it's 200. There you go. Okay. All right. Now, supposing the user puts in minus 30, and I click Calculate. All right, the area is minus 600. Yuck. Suppose the user puts in SDF. That's not a number. All right. So here's the goal of the assignment. The goal of the assignment is not just to create the function and to retrieve the values and to perform the calculation. The goal is also to make sure that these values are valid numbers before we write it to the page. All right, so, and here again, I'm going to take you through a logical step-by-step process on how you could approach it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to compare it to determine if it's a valid number, not using an if. Okay, so I have if, and we're using the is not a number function. This is a global function in JavaScript, and here again, a function. We're creating our own function, calculate, up here, and we're not passing any parameters. This is a global JavaScript function. It does take a parameter. There's my dog. It's the name. It's the variable that we're testing. The width. Uh-oh, I think I need to let her out. Hold on. Sorry about that. I probably should have done that from the beginning. All right. Is not a number the width. Okay, this is the syntax. We also have an or, and this is the pipe symbol. Where's my or? Here it is. Or the width is less than or equal to 0. Okay, so what we're saying, we have a logical operator. If one of these is true, if it's not a valid number, or if it's less than or equal to 0, the code inside the curly braces will execute. That's how an if works. Okay, so let's throw in an alert. An alert is your best friend. It's very good for basic testing. All right, so let's save that. Control S. Let's go back. I'm going to reload. I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to click Calculate. Okay, good. I have just tested that my if works because I see my alerts. All right, so I'm going to say okay. However, my expression is still winding up on the page. Why? Well, because JavaScript reads from the top down. It just read this, and then it read this. All right, so this statement has to be held back from the browser, from JavaScript, until everything is correct. Now, there's several ways of doing it, and I have sample code examples in the sample file for week 5 on the public box folder, along with the starter file for the assignment. All right, so let me explain to you. A very simple way of doing it is with an else if. So I can say else if, and I'm actually just going to copy this in, and we'll just look at the theory behind this. And we're looking at the height. Oops, that's an H. Valid number for the height. All right, and then we're going to have a final else. Just move that back over here. All right, Control X. All right, now one thing that's going to happen in JavaScript programming, and my lineup of code isn't that perfect, Control V, because I'm trying to keep it in a small area. You're going to start having a lot of curly braces. So it is a very good idea to start commenting out what they're doing. All right, this is my ending function. Here's my if, there's my else if, there's my else. All right, this is one if condition. All right, the way an if condition works, and we did this a couple weeks ago, is the first time it returns true, it stops and exits out. Therefore, if this is true, meaning the number is not valid, it will give the alert and then it's going to stop. If this is true, it will give the alert and then stop. If neither of the above are true, if they both return false, then the final else kicks in. Therefore, at this point, we will write to the page because it assumes that everything is correct, provided we did it correctly, which I think we did. All right, so I'm going to Control S, I'm going to reload, and now I'm going to put this in here. All right, calculate the area. Please enter a valid number for the width. Awesome, nothing happened. All right, now I'm going to put a valid number in. I'm going to click Calculate Area. Please enter a valid number for the height because there's nothing in there. Beautiful. All right, nothing happened. Nothing was written. All right, there you go. And notice I'm just doing it and notice how I'm testing. I'm going back and I'm testing little by little. All right, now there you go. There's the height. Now, if the user does go back and put something incorrect in, here again, that error, this is still here. All right, so what we need to do next, and the alerts are for testing, we need to get out of the alert, and we need to go into the error message. Okay, so in our code, we have two placeholders. ID equals ERRW, and ID equals ERRH. That's for our placeholders. So it's just a matter of, rather than giving an alert, which is awesome for testing, and by the way, I forgot my semicolons, we're going to write to the page. Okay, so document dot get element by ID, and this is ERRW, paren, one paren, not paren, thing there. All right, dot first child, dot node value, equals, and I can just copy this in. There we go, Control C, Control V. All right, let's test it. Do one thing at a time and test it, Control S. All right, reload. Okay, I'm putting something incorrect in here. There you go, and I have CSS making it red. All right, very good. All right, so I can essentially just copy this in here and paste it into my else because it's pretty much the same, except I have to change to width. This is our H, and change that to height. Control S. Let me reload over here. And so if I put in RR, calculate the area, please enter a valid number for the width. Okay, beautiful. Now I'm going to put a valid number in. Okay, so it's going to, now remember, it's going to come to the first true and then it stops. It's not going to check the else if because we already returned true. That was incorrect. Now if I go back and fix it, it will check the else if. However, notice the error message is still there. And if I go back and fix this and I calculate the area, when everything is correct, the error messages are still there. Okay, so we have to clear out the error messages. And this is a very common thing in JavaScript programming. All right, now remember, everything is happening when we click this calculate the area button. Everything is happening on the function. So what we need to do is we just have two expressions. You'll have three in the assignment. Control C. I'm just going to copy those object references. And the first thing I'm going to do as soon as this function loads is I'm going to clear out the error messages. All right, now you could actually put that in another function and call that function, but I'm not going to go into that right now. Control V. All right, let me just line these up. And you should essentially be documenting your code, clear out error messages. All right. All right. Okay, so let's see how that looks. Control S. Let's reload. Let's put a 30 in here. Let's put something bogus. There we go. Calculate the area. Okay, now I'm going to put something correct. 40. Now I'm going to click the button. Every time we click the button, we run this function. And the first thing it does, it clears out any, it doesn't matter whether there's an error message there or not. We're going to clear it out. This is the most efficient way of doing it over here on the left. It's right at the top. You could do it in the if. You would have to have a nested else or whatever. But this is more efficient. Okay, so back to the right. I'm going to click the button. Notice my error message disappeared. Now I have it for the height. And if I put a correct answer in when I click calculate, ooh. I forgot to change this to H. Okay. All right, there we go. Control S. All right, so let's go back here to 30. FFF. All right, there we go. Calculate. Now when I go back, there you go. 40. There you go. All right, now suppose the user goes back and they're playing with it and they stick a Y in there and they click calculate. All right, yeah, it's saying to enter a valid area, valid number, but this is still down here. That's just not professional looking. And this is what programmers do. They go over and over and over and they look at all the different possible ways a user could interact with an application and they just make sure that it looks correct, it looks professional, because this doesn't look good having that thing down there. That's why so many computer applications are always in beta. They're never finished, and that's why it takes so long for Microsoft to roll things out. Okay, so one more thing we're going to clear out. We want to clear out this first chart down here. All right, in our else, right here. Okay, we're going to clear this out also. Control C. So let me go up here. And that's going to equal nothing. All right, now, Control S. In the event that it is correct, I'll put a 20 here, I'll put a 10 here. There we calculate the area, and they go back, and they do something incorrect. There we go. That looks a lot more professional. All right. So, this is essentially what you're doing. And this is, like I said, I'm trying to get you, just take it one thing at a time, get one thing working at a time. Don't try to write it from top to bottom because you never do. You always write it block by block, piece by piece, and then start filling in what needs to get filled in. Okay, now, we need to clear out the data. Now, I just clicked to clear out the data. Okay? However, the reason my data clicked it was because I have input type equals reset. So I'm going to say input type equals button. And I'm going to say ID equals btn clear. All right. Okay. Now, if I save this, and I have something here, well, let me put something real here, 20. Well, it doesn't matter. And I click clear, it's not going to clear it, because this is no longer type equals reset, which is part of HTML. It automatically clears the form fields. It is, or doesn't technically clear them, it resets them to their initial value, because things could be checked by default. We have a type equals button, which is a generic button. All right, so what we need to do is we need to clear everything out in the event that anything's there when we say clear the data. And that includes the form fields, it includes any error messages, and it includes any output to the page. And we're going to do that with another function. All right, so let's create a function. Clear data, that's good enough. Okay, so this is how we create a function, and inside the curly braces is the code to be executed. Let's put our alert here. And now we're going to, we need the event handler to be set up here in our onload statement. Remember, anytime we want the user to do something, and then something is usually clicking on something, the browser needs to have that essentially in memory so it knows what to do with it. Like I said, we're clicking all the time. All right, and nothing happens because we didn't set anything up to happen. Get element by ID, btn clear. I don't need to fix that, and I need to fix that. Clear, delete, there you go. Dot on click, dot on click, CL, ICL, there you go. Equals, and what was that called? Clear data. CLEAR, clear data. Very good, fit. All right, so let's save this. Let's reload. Let's click the clear the data button. There you go. All right, now we're set up. Okay, so what we essentially need to do, we need to bring these statements here. All right, so like I said, you could actually put these statements in a third function and then call that function inside function calculate and inside function clear data if you wanted to start using multiple functions. However, you're not required to do that. All you need at minimum is 2 functions. So I'm going to copy all this in. We want to do this. All right, let me comment this out. Didn't I copy it? I guess I didn't. Let me do that again. Control C. Let me go down here. Control V. There we go. Okay. Now, we also need to clear out our form fields. If you remember, in our function, we retrieved the value of the form elements. Document.element by ID was width and height.value. We stored the value in a variable on the left. So this highlighted expression is going to retrieve the value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that value to none down here. All right, so I'll just put these separate. Equals none. There you go. Very simple. All right, now we need to do that for the height. And I can put the height in here. And let's Control S. Let's save that. Let me line that up a little nicer. And let's go over here. And let's just test this. We have an EE. And we have 20 here. Calculate the area. All right, there you go. If I clear data, good, everything's gone. Okay, very nice. Now, if I have 20 here and I have a 30 here, and I calculate, and I clear the data. Very good, everything's gone. Now if I have a 30 here, and I have a I have a 10 here, and I click calculate data, and then I go back and I put this here, and I calculate the area, then I click clear. Okay, everything's gone. All right, so what we're doing, we're retrieving the value of this form element. We're checking to see if it's a valid number. If it's not, here's the placeholder for the error message. We do the same for this form element and the other. There are two buttons. The first button calls the function to perform the calculations. The second button calls a function to clear the data, all the data. All right, so the event handlers, which are the two functions we create, need to go in here because they're being called from the onClicks. Should you wish to create any other functions that are called by these functions, they don't need to go here because you're not clicking on the button. The only thing that needs to go in the onload are the event handlers that's going to handle the click on the button, which is the object. All right, so here's the clear data. You clear everything out by setting it to nothing, making sure you retrieve the correct object. And here, the heart and soul, the error checking is not a number, or the value being less than or equal to 0. Here again, by using an if, else, only one of these clauses will return true at a time. The minute the first true is reached, it exits out of the if. Therefore, we can use the if to check if the values are not correct, because if they are correct, then the final else will execute, which is where we write to the page. All right, so I'm going to turn the recorder off at this point.